Hey guys, I want to make a video for the Gen 5. The client is aware of this, but we discovered that there were some issues with the uh, intake gaskets, which they had a Felpro 90665 on here, which is basically an automotive intake gasket, and I should have shown that. It had some real severe rust and deterioration right there. And it's probably a good thing that we pulled this, because I think I discovered where some of our smoke might be coming from. Here in the middle, it looks like there's some oil seepage in that area right there on both sides. So this would be the the gasket would be sitting like that in the block, but basically you can see there's it's pretty funky and oily right there, and you'll see why I'm bringing this up here in a second. On both sides, and I think there might have been some leakage right here. Also, this is really strange, but the intake, when I started taking it off, it should take they torque down. Motor Cruiser website has that at about 30 to 34 foot-pounds torque. And when I was preparing to take everything loose, I had my actual torque wrench out, and I was ready to have to gear into it, and they broke free with probably about 8 to 10 foot-pounds of torque. Now on the modern GM big block, they torque extremely light, like I think 14 foot-pounds or something like that. Somebody might have made a mistake and torqued this thing too light, or it could be that this internal metal here rusted and it started collapsing, which I think that's way overkill to think that way. I just think somebody didn't torque this thing properly. But where I'm going, this is in cylinders number 3, and then number 2 and 6. This blew my mind. I started doing just general cleaning, and let me show you what I discovered. Just loaded full of oil. Now, there's one and two places that oil could be coming from. And Jim, I'm basically making this video for you because I know you're away and you won't be able to see this for a while. It's nasty. I never see that in a block when I take it down. I'm going to talk a little bit loud. There's a neighbor cutting grass. So where I'm going, this is number 3, number 4, and number 6 are the ones that have a little bit of oil. Let me see if I can, see how that has oil down in it. So the only thing that could be is that the intake gasket was leaking and it was sucking oil, as the engine is going through its cycles, as this cylinder, as this piston starts going down, it creates a vacuum and it sucks a little bit of oil vapor out of this valley area right here and right down on top of the valve head and right all the way into the engine, and hence, in other words, it's sucking a real oily mix of fuel in. And the reason I don't want to touch the intake up there, but it's nice and clean on the intake runner. So in other words, this problem doesn't start until down in here. Now, if it were only on this side or only on one side, and I had a real clean intake gasket, I would be really suspect that there might be a cracked head, if that makes sense. In other words, if there was no signs of any leakage at all, and it had this kind of shit down in there, that's weird. That's like a cracked head that's sucking oil out of the the rocker area. Now it could be that, but it sure as hell is suspect that it's on both sides. Meaning that I don't think it would be that right there. There's no sense in trying to show that because the lighting is impossible out here in the environment. But anyway, again, it's number 3. We got 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's intake number 3, as I've said, number 4, and number 6. And you see what I'm saying? That's in close to that middle, which is a pretty big span right there. And if these head bolts weren't torqued properly, And then in addition to a little bit of, there's no rust down on the bottoms or anything, but just that little bit of rust there. There's a possibility that those gaskets were failing. But I just think that it was torqued improperly, and it was sucking some oil vapors up out of the engine. Oh, I'm glad I thought of this, because if you look at all of my rags here, see, this is where I sprayed them with lacquer thinner and then reached down in there. See how they're kind of rounded. See how they're rounded over? That's where I sprayed them with lacquer thinner and then reached down in there and cleaned really thoroughly. Here's, well, it's a waste of time, but that's just the rags for cleaning the top surface where I prepped the intake. Now I'll put this white towel down in here in the bottom and caught any debris. But on that note, I won't spend much time with this. The cam is in excellent condition. The lifters look excellent. I mean, internally the engine looks awesome. Push rods, turning nice and smooth. Everything internally as we discovered in our inspection. This is a damn good engine. So on that note, I'm going to clean, and when we crank it up, it's still going to smoke a little bit because it's going to have to burn off that oil residue that has been getting sucked up out of the intake. So I don't see any reason to be alarmed. Again, if it were only on one side, I'd be scared. I'd be suspect that there might be a bad head. But based on the engine, I can't imagine that being the case. So anyway, I'm going to end the video there. The engine's cleaned up nicely. It's ready for paint work and whatnot. So I'll just shut the video down. There's no sense in getting long-winded and talking about other stuff. Thanks.